recently a friend and I had a conversation about whether or not own voices writing is important, and whether you can actually write a character that's not in your own voice. And as we talked about it, I kind of didn't have a fixed opinion on it, and I think I still don't, but I've thought about it a lot more, and I think I just want to kind of chat about it. I would love to hear your opinion on it, and I would love to know if you write in own voices only, and if you read in own voices only as well, because I guess that's kind of the same category. So first of all, I'm gonna admit completely honestly that when I read a book, I don't care if the author is own voices with the characters, and I don't actually look it up. It's a lot to do with the fact that it still is fictional most of the time. I barely read anything non-fictional, and therefore I just think that all characters are fictional, whether they are like special in their label or category or not. And therefore, for me personally, when I'm writing something, it's also always the case of having to invent someone completely new and having to create this whole new character that most of the time doesn't have anything to do with me. Obviously, I do kind of include my own experiences in this. Most of the characters do have my thinking and my opinions, simply because that's what I know and that's just my worldview. But the characters themselves are always completely new creations, and therefore it's always something that I can't have experienced, even if the character would be a 20-year-old German girl. There still would be differences between me and the character that I write or read. And therefore I think own voices is also kind of a difficult term to define, because even if the characters are from the same label, from the same category as the author, that doesn't mean that they are the author, and therefore it's never really own voice. I think it's interesting to consider whether you can actually represent a certain individuality of a character, or actually also of a group of people, if you don't belong to that group. For example, right now with my Christmas story, I have a sort of similar problem, because my main character actually has no gender, no name, no outward appearance, and also doesn't talk, which is just something that I thought would be interesting to write, just as a challenge to myself, to see whether I can actually write a character that has no outward definitions and that is completely based on thoughts. And it is interesting to write, it's also really difficult to write. But when I set up this character, in my head I just left all those spaces blank, kind of, and I considered actually saying this character is, I don't know, non-binary, for example, or also saying that the character is mute. But I wasn't sure if I could represent that correctly, and if the people reading the story who are non-binary or mute would feel represented in it, or if I would write something that would offend them or that would be completely wrong to their experience. And that basically makes it quite obvious that I do have a problem with writing in not my own voice, even though I have written characters before who are nothing like me. But if it comes to writing a character of a certain group of people that need to be represented better in literature, that also means that there is something to represent, and that there is something this group of people feels needs to be included in this representation of them in literature. And if I don't belong to that group, then how do I know how to represent them? And how do I know what is important for them? But then again, if everyone is scared of writing those characters, then the problem of not enough representation of these groups in literature will never really be faced. It's also this group thinking, this representation of a certain group that doesn't work, because no group is the same. We are all individuals, and even if we identify with a certain label and want that to be represented better, then maybe the way someone else of that label wants to be represented has nothing to do with the way we want to be represented, and therefore I don't know if there actually is such a thing as like good or honest representation, because it always depends on the individual. I think that's everything I wanted to say. And again, I don't have a fixed opinion on this, I don't have a conclusion. I think I want to try and write not own voices more, but I don't really know. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. Yeah.